What is up, guys? Welcome back to Between the Pylons. I'm John Camacho. Thank you so much for watching. And today we are doing a new thing on the channel called wide receiver cornerback matchups. And guys, this is happening in conjunction with the Hammercast guys. So every single week on Wednesday night, I'm going to be doing a live stream with the Hammercast crew, and we're going to be talking about every single team and going through the wide receiver cornerback matchups for every single team for the following week in fantasy. All right. But for this show, I am doing a watered down version where I'm just going to talk about some of the more interesting nuggets that I found when studying. As we move throughout the season, I think this is going to form a little bit better. Obviously, week one, there's a lot we don't know. We didn't have any preseason, so that makes it a little bit more difficult to project how these teams are going to use their cornerbacks and their wide receivers, how we can expect this moving forward. So week one, going into week one, it is incredibly difficult to project. So a lot of this is very vague, but still I have a couple things. There are 3 wide receivers that I do think you should consider targeting this week, and then one more caveat at the very end that we're going to talk about. Before we get started, I do want to mention this is one data point. All right. So this is not everything. It is very, very difficult to surmise how a defense is going to attack the passing game of an offense into how good the cornerback is and how good the wide receiver is. There's so many other factors to bring into that. And to be perfectly frank, it's next to impossible to do that for one team, let alone every single game. So this is just very, very clear and concise data that I use. This is all data-driven analytics that I've studied. So week one is going to be obviously even more difficult. So while I do stand by everything that I'm going to say in this video, it should be taken with a grain of salt because we just don't know. How could you know? Nobody truly knows what's going to happen in week one. But all right, guys, let's get started. The first matchup I want to talk about is Marquise Brown versus the Browns. And guys, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. There are a lot of caveats here. There's data supporting and denying my claim that this is a good matchup. And I'm going to give you all the data. I'm going to let you make your own decision. I tend to think it is because I believe the Ravens are a very smart football team and will scheme up plays and put their players in the best chance to succeed. So let's get into it. Marquise Brown has a 142.3 passer rating when being targeted in zone coverage. He absolutely dominated in zone coverage last year in 2019. And on the flip side, Greedy Williams gave up 123.5 passer rating when being targeted in zone coverage schemes. That is a huge advantage for Marquise Brown, and that is the crux of this argument that Marquise Brown has a very good matchup this week. But I know what you're thinking. Greedy Williams is not the top corner for the Browns. It is obviously Denzel Ward, the 4th pick in the draft from a couple years ago. He is an absolute baller. He gives up 55% passer rating when being targeted in zone. So obviously the Browns would put Denzel Ward on Marquise Brown and cover this entire situation. And that's absolutely possible. But when we look at last year's statistics, Denzel Ward primarily lined up as the cornerback right on the defense, leaving Greedy Williams primarily on the left side of the defense. And Marquise Brown pretty much lined up all over the field. If the Browns are going to stick with that concept of keeping their corners on an island on both sides of the field, which might not happen. This is a new regime. This is a completely new coaching staff. So that is a caveat that we just can't know yet. But if they do, the Ravens will have an opportunity to specifically put Marquise Brown against Greedy Williams. And that is a recipe for success. It is worth noting that Marquise Brown did not perform very well against the Browns last season. Brown had a 56% completion rate, catching 5 of 9 passes for 28 yards and a measly 61.3 passer rating when targeting him against the Cleveland Browns last year. Now, there's a possibility that his foot injury, he had a screw in his foot that bothered him all year last year, is a possibility that foot injury was ailing him. Although if that is the case, he probably didn't tell his team because his snaps were consistent with the rest of his season snaps. It didn't look as if he was being held back in any way in those games. All in all, I do think Marquise Brown is a very good play this week. The next matchup I have for you guys is DK Metcalf against the Atlanta Falcons, and more specifically, Isaiah Oliver. The Atlanta Falcons were absolutely horrible against the deep pass. They gave up 101 and 102 passer rating in the deep left and the deep middle of the field. They gave up an 85% success rate over the deep middle of the field. That is 15 yards out in either the middle and left, right of the field. Oh, yeah, and they're going up against the best deep ball passer in the league in Russell Wilson. That means success for all the wide receivers on the Seahawks in a game that I do believe is scripted to be high scoring. I do believe the Seahawks are going to be forced to pass the ball more than they have done in recent years. And the Atlanta Falcons, let's face it, are pretty much built to outscore you, having, 11 first-rounders on the offense and a struggling defense, to say the least. It is worth noting that the Atlanta Falcons did draft a cornerback, A.J. Terrell, out of Clemson in the first round this year. He could match up against DK Metcalf, but the reason I'm saying DK Metcalf is the player to have and not Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett lines up in the slot, and he could absolutely have a blow-up game. I'm not saying that won't happen, but the reason I'm so excited about DK Metcalf is because DK Metcalf primarily lines up on the outside, so he is going to be lining up against an Isaiah Oliver. He is going to be lining up against an A.J. Terrell in his first ever start in the NFL against DK Metcalf, an absolute physical freak. Isaiah Oliver struggled last year in both man and zone, giving up a 135 passer rating in man and a 116.7 passer rating in zone coverages. He is not a great cornerback, but he is the best corner they have for the Atlanta Falcons. Desmond Trufant moved on to the Lions in the offseason. The Falcons did their best to address the cornerback position, but Isaiah Oliver is still set up to start, and this is a huge advantage for DK Metcalf. And if we look at the way where Isaiah Oliver lined up last year and where DK Metcalf primarily lined up last year, these guys are going to match up significantly. And even if he does face AJ Terrell, again, like I said, this is a first round pick, yes, but this is a rookie going into his first ever game against DK Metcalf. I think that this is probably the best matchup of the week. I would be slamming DK Metcalf in DFS, and if you have him in your fantasy league, start him. And the last matchup I have for you guys is CeeDee Lamb versus David Long. And I understand this is a little bit weird because I'm talking about a rookie wide receiver who has not played a snap in the NFL as of recording this video, going up against David Long, a second-year corner drafted in the third round by the Rams that did not get much playing time last year. He wasn't hurt. He was a healthy scratch for most of the 2019 season. So why am I saying that this is such an advantage for CeeDee Lamb? First of all, CeeDee Lamb is going to line up in the slot primarily. This is reports that it's come out of the Dallas Cowboys camp. Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup already have those outside receiver roles taken up. So CeeDee Lamb is going to perform very well in the slot. He is taking over for Randall Cobb, who's moved on to Houston. But last year, Randall Cobb was targeted 74 times in the slot in 2019. I believe CeeDee Lamb is going to get even more targets than that. I believe CeeDee Lamb is a far more talented player than Randall Cobb at this point in their careers. And oh, by the way, he is going up against David Long, a third-round pick in 2019. David Long is going to take over the role that Nikhil Roby-Coleman had in 2019 over the past couple of years. Coleman has moved on to the Eagles. David Long is slotted into that position. This is a very unexperienced young guy going up against CeeDee Lamb, who, yes, is also inexperienced and young, but CeeDee Lamb has a much higher pedigree and I believe is a far more superior athlete and receiver. I think this is a great matchup for CeeDee Lamb. Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup are going to have their hands full on the outside, but CeeDee Lamb has a perfect matchup to blow up in his first ever game in the NFL. All right, guys, and I have one more caveat for you guys. I'm going to be honest with you, there's not a lot of data behind this, so that's why this is just a caveat. It's just something to mention. It's something to think about. The Steelers match up against the Giants this week. Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Washington, and Chase Claypool, who they drafted in the second round this year, have all gotten great reviews out of camp. Now, the guys that were there last year, I had to throw their data away. I'm not bringing it up in this video because they have backups throwing in the ball for pretty much the entire season. but Ben Roethlisberger is back. I believe that they are going to have a much better season this year. The Steelers in general are going to be a much better offense this year, and they're matching up against the worst cornerback room in the NFL. Look, the Giants are doing their best. They had bad luck with their former first-round pick out of Georgia getting in trouble with the law and is going to miss the 2020 season on the commissioner exempt list, most likely going to be cut at some point through this season. They are forced to start James Bradberry, a former second-round pick from the Carolina Panthers who has not really ever performed well. He's ranked 68th in PFF. That's their best corner. The other corner they're starting is Corey Ballentine, a sixth-round pick in 2019 who was forced to start. He did his very best, but he just wasn't able to keep up with the NFL season. I'm rooting for this kid. I think he's a very good player who has potential, but he is in over his head. Now, the Giants have pretty good play at the safety position, but all in all, the cornerback room itself is not good. They signed Logan Ryan, who played safety for the Titans, and will probably have to come in and play cornerback. The coaching staff called him a Swiss Army knife, so I'm assuming that he was actually signed to play cornerback instead of safety, but he's going to be playing out of position at the end of the day. And now, I don't know exactly who has the edge. I don't know how the Steelers wide receivers are going to look this year. I just don't. Juju Smith-Schuster might be better. We still don't know. We have not seen a breakout performance from Juju Smith-Schuster without Antonio Brown on the other side of him, so we don't know what he can do as the number one. Deontay Johnson has gotten a lot of buzz throughout the offseason, but we just haven't seen it on the field. James Washington has had a very good camp. He's been very choppy on the field, but has had a good camp and is getting great reviews. And Chase Claypool, their second round pick out of Notre Dame, he's apparently had an awesome camp and should get on there. I don't know who out of these four guys is going to ball out. I don't know who is going to have their big game, but guys, I implore you, if you play DFS, if you are in a tight spot and need to start a wide receiver, go play one of these guys. So that's the caveat, guys, and those are the receivers I am looking at in week one. Now, guys, this is not all of the research I've done. I have a lot of great stuff for you guys, but the rest of it is going to be on the Hammercast Network on Wednesday night. We are going to be doing a live stream. It will go up. It will be a podcast on Hammercast. So go subscribe to their podcast, subscribe to their YouTube channel, check them out. And while you're at it, subscribe to Between the Pylons, because we are going to be doing this video every single week. We have a podcast every single week. We have other videos that come out. I am a big draft guy. So if you're into the draft and like draft reviews, if you like film reviews, all that stuff, I try to do a good bit of it. Oh yeah. And if you're interested in this jersey right behind me, T.Y. Hilton, you can win this jersey. All you have to do, like, subscribe, comment. If you want to get more chances of winning, you can go into past podcasts where we're advertising this jersey. Like, subscribe. Really, if you've already subscribed, all you can do is like and comment. And then also you can go into Apple Podcasts, check out the Between the Pylons podcast, like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that good stuff. You'll be entered into a chance to win this T.Y. Hilton jersey right behind me. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Peace out.